Hello and good evening, everyone. My name is Stephen Linton. I'm the Senior Manager of Community Engagement for the Durham region at Metrolinx. David Phelps, the Senior Manager for the Toronto East team, was scheduled as the moderator. However, due to unforeseen circumstances, he's unable to attend and sends his regards. It is my pleasure to be the moderator for this evening's event. On behalf of Metrolinx, I'd like to welcome everyone viewing online to this evening's information session focused on the Durham-Scarborough Bus Rapid Transit project for the Ellesmere community in Scarborough. Metrolinx is committed to engaging with and informing our neighbours, customers and the community about our progress as we move forward with planning, building and operating the region's transit network. We invite all feedback regarding our services and our projects, and want to thank you again for your interest in joining us here this evening. Please note that this event is being closed captioned. To use this feature, please enable it on your video player. Metrolinx acknowledges that it operates on the traditional territory of the Indigenous peoples, including the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples. In particular, these lands are covered by 20 treaties, and we have a responsibility to recognize and value the rights of Indigenous nations and peoples and conduct business in a manner that is built on the foundation of trust, respect, and collaboration. Metrolinx is committed to building meaningful relationships with Indigenous peoples and to working towards meaningful reconciliation with the original caretakers of this land. Metrolinx remains committed to engaging with the Indigenous peoples and nations on the Durham-Scarborough Bus Rapid Transit project. I would also like to take a moment to talk about safety. Safety is central to everything we do, whether it's our colleagues, customers, or community. At Metrolinx, we are committed to putting safety first in everything we do. I'd like to begin with a safety moment. In support of Operation Lifesavers Rail Safety Week, we are reminding customers and community members to stay safe when they are near or crossing our tracks. We know rail safety is a shared responsibility, which is why we continue to introduce safety improvements as we build more rail infrastructure and introduce more GO and up train service as we return to pre-pandemic levels of service. We have a level crossings and safety framework to ensure that all level crossings are safe for customers, drivers, and communities. Metrolinx transit safety officers are out in communities year-round conducting community rail safety outreach. Please call Safety Dispatch if you witness or are involved in an incident on our property at 1-877-297-0642, and they are available 24 hours a day. Before we begin, I would now like to talk about the format and expectations for this virtual open house. We will begin with a brief overview of the project. After the presentation concludes, we will be taking written questions submitted via our comment form on Metrolinx Engage. From there, my colleague Jocelyn Stenner will be taking the lead in moderating the Zoom room, where participants will have the opportunity to ask their questions live directly to our panel. We have scheduled this session to last an hour and a half. Our goal is to take as many questions as possible. As we often see a lot of similar themes in the written questions submitted, I'd ask that you scroll through the existing questions, and if you see one that covers your area of interest, please vote it up. This will allow us to answer as many different types of questions as possible. We will be answering questions based on popularity of votes. A reminder that you can submit a new question at any time during the presentation. For questions we were unable to get to during the event, we will be posting answers on Metrolinx Engage within 14 business days. We ask that you please be mindful that conduct inconsistent with our policies will result in the removal of your comments and questions. We encourage all attendees to be respectful and keep the conversation relevant to the Durham-Scarborough BRT project and preliminary designs for Scarborough. Again, if you've just joined us, welcome, and our event is being captioned. To use this feature, simply enable it on your video player. Metrolinx is committed to continuing the conversation about the Durham-Scarborough BRT and look forward to continued engagement with the Ellesmere and larger Scarborough community throughout the next stages of this important transit project. I would now like to introduce our wonderful panel this evening. The Vice President of Planning for Metrolinx, Matthew Getsky, the Project Manager for the Durham-Scarborough BRT, Kristen DeMasi, the Director of Community Engagement for Durham York with Metrolinx, Leona Hollingsworth, and the Consultant Lead from Parsons IBR Group, David Hopper. With that, I'll pass it to Matthew to provide an overview of the Durham-Scarborough BRT project.
Thank you very much, Stephen. So I'm very happy to have the opportunity to come back to the community and discuss this important project for us. Next slide, please. So as you know, this is part of, in the regional transportation plan, there are 3 BRT corridors that have been planned across the region to provide connections that really complement the existing rail network and the existing and the future subway network. So this is one of them. It's a 36-kilometer corridor that really connects east-west from the Scarborough Centre into Durham region, and it's important because it connects a number of crucial and very dynamic urban areas. So the urban growth centers of Scarborough, Pickering, and Oshawa are connected. There are some key institutions along the way, whether they're hospitals, universities, both in Scarborough and outside of Scarborough, and numerous employment areas along the way. And most of them that actually have I would say have not switched to telework as much as the downtown areas. So there's a lot of needs for mobility that also will remain after the pandemic that we're seeing today. So it's really a dynamic corridor in an area that's predicted to grow in terms of both kind of people and jobs by about 50 to 55% over the next 20 years. Next slide, please. So this project is not new. It took, like many transit projects, it takes a lot of time to mature. So it starts with an idea that was in the big move in 2008, and then was confirmed in the regional transportation plan in 2018. And this is when we were able to initiate the current stage of work, which is what we call the preliminary design stage, where we also do the environmental assessment, which is also called the transit project assessment process. So we are at that stage where, having worked with the community and continuing the dialogue with the community, we get to a level of design that's fine-grained enough that we can evaluate these environmental impacts. So whether it's on the natural environment, on traffic, on heritage, and this is what is presented in the environmental project report. Next slide, please. So in 2018, we had, before engaging in that design stage, we had drafted and published the business case for the project, which really summarized all the benefits. What are we trying to achieve here with this bus rapid transit corridor? There's a wide range of benefit types. These are summed up, and we put numbers next to them to really evaluate how they're going to contribute to the regional economy. But overall, I would say, in a nutshell, what we're trying to do is we're trying to improve the transit service in itself. So both in terms of the speed of the service, so it saves some time for the riders. So there you see almost 10 minutes on average saved per rider. We're trying to improve the reliability. So that's bus delay. So today we know that 40% of the trips in Scarborough are of the bus trips get delayed by more than 3 minutes. And when they get delayed by 5-10 minutes, that means that if you have a frequency of 10 minutes, then you may end up waiting for your bus for 20 minutes, even though it may have a much higher frequency. So that's kind of the key. That's really the benefits for our transit customers along the corridor. There are key benefits associated to also reducing greenhouse gas emissions and local pollution, because giving this quality of service will enable to take some cars off the road, as people will have more options to travel to the destinations that they want to reach. And it will also improve the safety along the way, both by improving, and that for all users, whether it's for car drivers or pedestrians or cyclists, to really transform the boulevard, the avenue as it is today, and the Ellesmere Road as it is today, into a much friendlier road for all of its different users. And then the last benefit that we look at is really the contribution to the local economy. All this helps to bring people and jobs closer to each other, and that really helps both all the businesses that are along the way, because they can find more people who can work for them, and it's easier to connect to your clients, and that's a significant benefit for the region. In terms of total impacts, it's also, here we're talking about increases in the number of potential customers based on existing travel patterns. So where people are moving around the region today, we expect that we can double and do more than double the number of people per hour that will be using transit along the corridor. Next slide, please. So one question we've heard along the process is, why Ellesmere Road and not something else? So we really looked at a number of different corridors, and the regional transportation plan looks at takes a bit of a step back and looks at you have the rail corridor that really helps to bring people to the downtown area. Then you have a Shepherd corridor that brings you to the subway further out north. But really, there are so many key employers, institutions, amenities, and centers along Ellesmere that is one of the corridors that we know today is generating a lot of travel needs, and will do even more so in the future as Scarborough Centre continues to grow and the universities continue to grow and develop. So this is really the corridor that gives the most direct connections to all of these key destinations that people want to get to. It also connects to a number of major transit initiatives, so gives access to even more services, whether it's through the Scarborough subway, the proposed Eglinton East LRT, and buses on Morningside Avenue that connect north-south. We did examine other alternatives to be able to move maybe a little bit further along Kingston Road and then up Military Trail, but they didn't perform as well. They actually had much more significant property impacts and didn't really connect with the university, and especially in the future alignments of the trail. It doesn't enable us to really serve all the destinations as we're looking for, and it serves less of a population because of the Kingston Road being alongside Highway 2 and blocking access to on the south side, limiting the pedestrian access to that corridor. Next slide, please. So in terms of service, to make that a little bit more practical, what it all means is what we envision in the future, and services will ramp up as the demand will grow, but ultimately buses will arrive every 3 minutes during the peak hours and every 10 minutes off peak. And with the reliability benefits that we're talking about, they will be really following schedule very rigorously. So when we say 10 minutes, you won't have any of the bus bunching that may happen when buses are in mixed traffic and end up being one behind another. It's also supplemented by a number of other routes. So here you have a map which shows all of the existing TTC routes, as well as some GO bus routes that are there. So it's really it becomes kind of a trunk for an entire network, and these other lines help to continue to build that grid that also enables to connect all of Scarborough and a lot of the key employment areas across Scarborough. So the corridor will be used, the infrastructure itself will be used by multiple buses. It can be used by the TTC, by Durham Region Transit buses that will be coming from the east, and by GO buses. So they will use the infrastructure together, and then but they will also be able, and especially for TTC buses, some of the TTC buses will continue to serve all of the neighboring stops. So east of Morningside, there are many more local stops. So there we'll find the right balance. Again, that will be adjusted with the demand to continue to serve the local stops, while having some express routes that will really exclusively use the central corridor and have that improved speed and reliability of service. Next slide, please. So just to go through the recent process, so we've been through a number of engagement rounds that have enabled us to have conversations with a number of you in the community, with a number of groups, whether they're advocacy groups or interest groups, both locally and throughout the city of Toronto. And today we're at that stage where we've had a number of back and forths. We heard a number of questions, concerns, remarks, support from the community, and we're coming back to you with some of the refined design elements that are being evaluated in the environmental project report. And there you see a few numbers there on the bottom of the slide. So a lot of, in spite of the virtual environment that we're all working from today, we've had actually a lot of people signing in, a lot of people attending the open houses, a lot of people visiting the websites, and we've reached to many neighbors in your neighborhood and across the city. Next slide, please. So to summarize, throughout that engagement process, we heard a number of questions, and these are the four main questions that we've heard repeatedly. One is the question related to how people can turn left across Ellesmere to access their own driveway. The second question was with respect to increasing noise and pollution because we're bringing more buses. The third one was on impacts to vegetation along Ellesmere Road as we reprofile the road. And the fourth was asked to be a little bit clearer on what is the overall process and how does this engagement with you influence the design process. So we've explored a number of solutions to be able to answer to and provide and adjust the design to respond to these questions that you've asked. So we're looking at a number of areas and a number of places. We're trying to add some traffic signals, again, working closely with the City of Toronto in partnership with them and their transportation services to try to provide better access to the neighborhoods north and south of Ellesmere Road along the way. We're also looking at phasing the solution. So we know today it is a quiet area with limited traffic, but we do forecast that over the next 20 years, traffic will increase significantly. And so, today maybe some of the infrastructure pieces like the raised medians in the middle of the road may not be necessary immediately, but as soon as the traffic will grow, that's something that will be required for safety reasons, for road safety reasons. So that's also an element that of phasing that will help with to implement the project at the right time. And we'll do further at the detailed design a safety audit again to review different design alternatives on this median to see what can we do to be the least disruptive to the community while preserving some of the safety benefits that we're seeing along the corridor from that curved median. And these are things that we've measured in other bus rapid transit projects across the region. I know we've gathered a number of information out of York Region. They've seen a surprising decrease. I think it's 50% less accidents where they've implemented that type of road profile. On noise and pollution, though, so we've been working also closely with the TTC and Durham Region Transit. First, transit emits per person significantly less emissions than a private automobile, and both of the operators are really working hard on developing an electrified fleet that will help us as they renew their fleet to produce less greenhouse gases and less local pollutants. In terms of noise, the full assessment is made in the environmental project report, and the solution of the median is actually a little bit further out from the houses, and it is also a good solution from a noise perspective. On vegetation, we've been looking very closely. So today we have, again, we're not at a detailed design. We can't point to specific trees that need to be replaced. But what we can see overall is that as we reprofile the boulevards, there are some areas where, as we put in some cycling lanes, as we've moved the sidewalks to be a little bit wider, some trees may be impacted. And for every impacted tree, 3 will be planted. So we'll make sure that we keep the character, the landscaping character of the neighborhood. And the detailed design will help us to minimize the impact. So if we have to shift a little bit of the sidewalks here and there to preserve some of the trees along the way, that's something that we'll do. And finally, well, I would say we're happy to continue to engage with you. Tonight is an opportunity to do so, but then make sure that feel free to continue to connect to the dedicated team with via email, or you'll see them also at the end of this event. And you can have some names of people that you can really feel free to reach out to. Next slide, please. So just on the refined design. So again, to say already we've done a number of changes in the design to be able to start to shape it up and understanding the benefits that you're looking for and some of the impacts on the community to change that. So both in terms of improving the sidewalks, creating new cycle tracks. We've heard a lot of also positive feedback, a lot of high expectations that this project will be an opportunity to improve the comfort, the safety of the corridor for a lot of different people who may want to use it in the future. And we've also adjusted the spaces for streetscaping and tree planting. We heard very clearly that that landscaped character of the neighborhood is very important, and so that's a piece that we're very careful about to really preserve the maximum width of the landscaping zones in the boulevards to keep that character. While from a pure road standpoint, we've been working also closely with emergency services, looking at also the business needs along the way to make sure that trucks, large vehicles can continue to use Ellesmere Road conveniently, can continue to access the businesses there. And that's something that we've heard of, and I think the design really provides for that. In the future, so as I mentioned, there's a few further refinements that we're looking at. So looking at, again, alternative median designs and weighing them in terms of road safety, considering new traffic signals and a potential stage implementation to make sure that things come in when they're needed from a neighborhood perspective. Just maybe to wrap up this introduction before I hand it over to Kristen, next slide on the benefits, just to say again, this is what we've heard from the community to really look at really improve these connections to local and regional destinations. We've measured that 40% of trips along the corridor start and stay along that corridor. So it's not, we're not trying to serve the commuters who could use the rail service. It's really different people who will benefit from that, and that mobility, providing these additional options is really important. And a lot of people, we've heard from a lot of people that they're expecting that to happen in the future, and to help them to access their jobs or their universities, or to visit their family and friends in the neighborhood. And maybe I'll stop here for this introduction and hand it over to Kristen, who can run you through the specifics of the design along the entire corridor. Kristen.
Thanks, Matthew. So just this is a slide on the BRT stop locations. So overall, we're looking at 49 stops from end to end, so from Scarborough Town Centre through to downtown Oshawa. The average spacing is about 730 metres, which is sort of in line with rapid transit stop spacing to make sure that the service can run a little bit quicker and more efficiently. That being said, there are some stops which are a little bit closer together, depending on key destinations. Like the western end of Ellesmere Road, they're a little bit closer together, just reflecting the travel patterns and the destinations along the corridor. Same thing in Durham region as you sort of head into Whitby and Oshawa and Ajax. Next slide, please. So we'll just run you through what the current design is for Ellesmere Road. So I'm going to go east along the corridor. So from Grangeway to Morningside, just before the university, we are maintaining the same amount of traffic lanes as there is today. So there'll be 4 lanes of traffic, 2 in each direction, and we're adding 2 bus lanes, 1 in each direction. Segment 2 through the university, it will remain the same, and buses will run in the curb, and I'll talk about that in a minute. Segment 3, so this is the between Conlins and Meadowvale. So this is through the Highland Creek area. Today it's 4 lanes of traffic. We're proposing 2 lanes of traffic and 2 bus lanes. So this is in response to the community feedback and consultation with the City of Toronto, who felt that the conversion of traffic lanes was important for the project, and to increase the space for the boulevard treatments and tree planting and those other things. And segments 4 and 5 and 6, sort of on the end of Kingston Road there, we are in discussions with MTO, but the current design is to have centre median bus lanes through that section. Section 6 is the bridge over the Rouge, and that the buses will remain in mixed traffic before they then enter a median through into the City of Pickering and along Highway 2 in Durham region. Next slide, please. So just a little bit more information on each segment. So segment 1, Grange Way to Morningside. Today we have done an extensive traffic analysis as part of the project. And so today, for instance, we see approximately 1,300 vehicles in each direction during rush hour. In 2041, which is our horizon year for the project, with the BRT, that number is about 1,400 to 1,500 vehicles. So we know that sort of can be carried by 2 lanes of traffic in each direction. So for this section, this is why we're proposing to keep the same amount of traffic lanes and put in widen the road to include the 2 centre median bus lanes. Next slide, please. And we do have a couple of renderings. So this is Markham Road and Ellesmere looking west today, and just flip to the next slide. And we do have a rendering of the BRT. Next slide, please. So segment 2, so this is really around the university campus, and we are proposing buses in the curb lanes, and this is for a couple of reasons. The Eglinton East LRT that is currently in planning we are in discussions with the City of Toronto and the university to make sure that the 2 projects can work together. So the Eglinton East LRT does provide a strategic link between the university, the neighbourhood improvement areas in Scarborough, and we want the BRT to connect into that as best we can. And the university also has a master plan that we're trying to make sure that the BRT can fit within that as well, and that includes realignment of the existing military trail intersection. Next slide, please. So segment 3, so through Highland Creek, so military trail to Kingston Road. Today, the traffic is about 700 vehicles in each direction during rush hour. In 2041, we're seeing about 800 vehicles in each direction. So we know that this traffic can be carried by 1 lane in each direction. So this is why we're proposing 1 lane of traffic in each direction and 2 bus lanes in the centre median. And as Matthew said, that will allow for us to improve certainly the sidewalks and the boulevard treatments through that section. Next slide, please. So if during PIC3 back in November, December last year, we did present 6 lanes from Military Trail to Kingston Road. So this is the refined design since that time, based on the community feedback. So, I mean, this slide is just sort of shows you where we're looking. So if you look at the yellow at the top, it sort of shows you where we're adding lanes and where sort of the most impact is likely to occur to property. The next slide just shows you, the next diagram is the road layout. So you can see sort of how the median, the bus lanes sort of fit within the overall road profile. And then on the bottom is signalized intersections where people will facilitate left turns. So as part of the, since 2020, we've identified 2 new traffic signals, one at Mornell Court and one at Merebank Boulevard. And we're still looking at if there's opportunities to provide more intersections to facilitate additional left turns. Next slide, please. So a rendering, this is Ellesmere Road at Conlins today, looking east, and flip to the next slide. And you can see what we envisioned the BRT to look like. And next slide, please. So segments 5 and 6, so this is Kingston Road from Ellesmere to Raspberry Road. Traffic today is a little bit heavier. It's about 1,400 vehicles in each direction. In 2041, that number is about 1,500 to 1,600. So we're expecting that traffic can be carried by 2 lanes in each direction. At PIC 3, this design was still in consultation with the Ministry of Transportation, particularly as it intersects over the 401. We are still confirming this design with them, but the intent is to convert 2 of the traffic lanes into dedicated centre median lanes and maintain 4 lanes of general traffic, so 2 in each direction, and as well as sort of fit in as much cycle infrastructure as we can. So that's sort of still in refinement with MTO. And next slide, please. So as Matthew touched on the safety benefits of the centre median lane. So we do see, when projects like this are implemented, there is an improved safety benefit to restricting left turns and only having them at signalized intersections. So it does improve the pedestrian experience, so people can cross the road at the intersections. It does protect the transit users. There'll be raised platforms. It will protect the cyclists as on the road as well, and it does sort of reduce the collisions between drivers, pedestrians, cyclists, and buses. So we do have some numbers from York Region that do see sort of 50 to 70% fewer collisions along the rapid ways. So we are expecting that these centre median lanes do provide a safety benefit for the community. And next slide. We do have a video that we wanted to share which just shows it's borrowed off the York Region website, which shows the left turns and U-turns at signalized intersections. Yeah, please. Yeah, so you can see the bus pulls up at the stop. Vehicles are given a left arrow to turn left, and then a green light, and all traffic moves. So that's another benefit of having buses in the centre lane, is that it does sort of make existing traffic more efficient because vehicles travel with the flow of the bus. Thanks. So just the last slide, I think, is on the next steps. So we are, as Matthew said, we are looking to launch the formal environmental assessment TPAP process. So that will include another round of consultation across the entire corridor. We're looking to do that in the fall. That'll also include where we will share the results of all the environmental reports. So people will be able to see the impacts and our proposed mitigation measures, and there'll be opportunities for the public to comment on that. In 2022, we are working on the preliminary design business case, so that'll be an update to the IBC that Matthew was talking about earlier. And we are committed to ongoing consultation during detailed design and construction of the project. That there are several commitments that we're going to make in the EPR that talk about sort of what we can do during those phases of work to further refine the project and certainly address some of those outstanding concerns that we've been hearing. So that's it. I'm going to hand back to Stephen, and we look forward to taking everybody's questions.
Thanks so much, Kristen. So for those who have just joined us, thank you for participating in our Durham-Scarborough Bus Rapid Transit Virtual Open House. My name is Stephen Linton. I'm the Senior Manager of Community Engagement for the Durham region from Metrolinx. Just a reminder that this event is being closed captioned, and to use this feature, enable it on your video player. So we heard the presentation, and now we are going over to some questions. Our terrific panel is ready to answer your written questions submitted. So let's go to the questions. First question. While the current design aims to introduce cycling lanes that will connect 6 existing cycling lanes to Ellesmere Road, it also leaves a gap along Kingston Road between Ellesmere and Altona. What are Metrolinx plans to support the continuity of the cycling infrastructure in this area with the Durham-Scarborough BRT project?
I can start very quickly and then maybe pass it to David or Kristen to give some details. But this is really something. Well, we've heard it from the community, and we know that it's a really important. It's really important for the transit project itself. We know every transit customer, or the very wide majority of customers, before they ride the bus, they either walk or cycle to get to their stop. So we need to connect all of that corridor to the cycling lanes and to consistent sidewalks and make everything accessible. So that's kind of that key to be able to connect with all of the, both the existing and the future network from the City of Toronto's cycling plan has been really important for us in designing the project. We've been trying to push, the design as much as possible. So today we're able to provide continuous cycling infrastructure. Sometimes we have to switch to a multi-use path on one side, as in one of the segments that Kristen mentioned earlier, and they're on and we know that the crossing of the Rouge River is a bit of a challenge. So we've been pushing it to push that multi-use path as far as possible up to Raspberry Road. But we know that after that, on the bridge, without a bridge widening, it would be a challenge, or it would be a significant kind of restructuring of the bridge. So that's a piece that we're really working on with the City of Toronto. We know it's part of it's part of the cycling plan to improve that. As part of this project, it was a challenge to realize it in the same time, but it's definitely something that we're looking at in the future, and we've really tried to minimize that disruption to the continuity of the cycling lanes. I know David or Kristen, if you had anything to add to that.
No, I think that captured. MTO is also very keen to make sure that there's cycling infrastructure through the areas that they have control of. So we're working through their process to make sure that the facilities from the intersection of Ellesmere and Kingston, as far as Raspberry Road in Kingston, meets Metrolinx's objectives, but also MTO's, as they have control over the road.
Thank you. And a bit of a comment and a question along the same lines. So I support continuation of the cycling infrastructure between Ortona and Ellesmere on Kingston Road. However, this is a busy road, which could be dangerous for cyclists. Have any alternatives been discussed to support the safety of cyclists using this route?
Well, as noted, there are very few crossings of the Rouge River, so there are limited opportunities. What we found is along the bridge itself, we will be operating this service in mixed traffic, so we're not changing the bridge. We have been discussing with the City of Toronto how we can advance their plan to add cycling facilities onto the bridge to fill in that missing gap. So hopefully we'll have something resolved by the time this project moves forward and moves into construction. So the city recognizes that that's the last gap. And we hope that this project and the investment in this corridor will help spur them to move this up the agenda to make sure that this entire corridor has continuous facilities.
Thanks so much, David. So the next question is about the engaging with transit riders. The Durham-Scarborough BRT is pretty popular among transit riders who are aware of the project. So what is your engagement plan in order to record their opinions and listen to their thoughts and desires surrounding this project?
Thank you, Stephen. I can take that one. So as Matthew mentioned early on in the presentation, so far we've had 3 rounds of public engagement on the project, and at each we received very valuable feedback from different kinds of groups, feedback that helped to shape some of the refined designs you saw just tonight. In and around the public engagements, of course, we meet with residents, with businesses, with many stakeholders along the route, and we have a stakeholder advisory group that includes many groups from Scarborough that you'll be familiar with, groups like Cycle Toronto, Scarborough Boys and Girls Club, University of Toronto, Centennial College. So at each of these engagement opportunities, we share that information through the local newspaper advertisements, radio, mailed notice, website, and email updates. What we want to do is to continue to engage with the community in events like this tonight, and in the next public engagement that Kristen referenced coming up next month. We're also really excited to be able to actually get back out into the community as much as possible as health restrictions allow. We were there just last week at the Highland Creek Library, and we'll be looking for more opportunities like that over the next few weeks and months, so we can hear from all different perspectives and all different groups in the Scarborough community and all the way along the route, really. Ultimately, what we want to do is balance the concerns of the community with the need to maintain transit reliability through this section of the corridor.
Thanks, Leona. So what we'll do, we'll take one more question from Engage, and then we'll go over to the Zoom room. So this is about the inclusion of the TTC and the curbside and a curbside option. So Ellesmere Road provides the most fuel and cost efficient path to connect commuters with the future subway location at Scarborough Town Centre, Centenary Hospital, and the potential Eglinton East LRT, and 2 post-secondary campuses. While I support the Durham-Scarborough BRT project and its proposed route, a uniform centre median design may cause some local inconvenience since my neighbourhood, of Highland Creek. For the portion of Ellesmere Road between Military Trail and Kingston Road, is there any reason why curbside design isn't being considered?
I can start on that one, and that's a really good question, and we've looked at it. I think we've really carefully looked at what are the benefits that we get from a curbside design versus a median design, and we know, looking at projects both across the region, across Canada, that the center median is the one that really helps both with traffic, because you actually have less friction with the vehicles coming in and out of driveways or turning right, and it provides the best reliability for the buses, and it actually smooths out traffic best too. And even though it takes a little bit of space, because it's true that at intersections that means you need some turn lanes and you need the platform. So I would say that's the inconvenient is it takes a little bit of space at intersections, but it also makes them safer, because instead of having a wide road, it's you have a platform in the middle. It's actually quite helpful for pedestrians and cyclists, and we can mix them with that medium design quite practically. We know the intersection with Military Road that you mentioned explicitly in that catch it with the Military Trail. That's a tricky one. Kristen went over it earlier. I think it's a really with the Eglinton East LRT, the realignment of Military Trail, that is a bit of a complicated intersection to design. So there's no, we can't continue with a median design. But even in Kingston, on Kingston Road, at the junction of Ellesmere and Kingston, there we get the bus back into that center median approach, because that's really where we get most of the benefits and the reliability from that design. And yeah, so we looked at alternatives. They don't perform as well. It's a fine balance between finding what has the least impact on property and provides fits in within the right of way and provides the best benefits both for bus riders, for car drivers, pedestrians, and cyclists. David, did you want to add something?
Yeah, and we find that transit that is segregated from other traffic and operates on its own schedule and can operate reliably performs better, and the riders know that and can plan their trip time. The challenge we have operating in mixed traffic is that if there's a snowstorm, if there's a heavy rainstorm like there was yesterday, if there is an incident on Highway 401 and everyone's looking for alternate routes, then that section of the corridor is going to be jammed with traffic. We're going to slow the buses down. We're going to lose our reliability, and that will drive people away from public transit. So what we need to do is find the system that will create a consistent level of reliability every single day. And the way to do that is to have the bus system operating in its own dedicated lanes. The same way that the subway into downtown operates, it's the same 22 minutes from Finch to Yonge and Bloor almost every single day, whether rain, shine, or other issues. Whereas any bus that's operating on Yonge Street, the trip could be anywhere from 40 minutes to 3 hours. So even though this is a short stretch, the challenge is that once the buses get behind schedule, it isn't just this short stretch. That bus is now behind schedule all the way to Scarborough Centre, and then he's late for his next trip out, so he has to try and catch up all the way back out towards Oshawa. So small changes in reliability in small sections of the corridor have an outsized impact on the reliability of the entire corridor, which is why we're suggesting and why we're planning for median BRT over almost all of the corridor.
And maybe if I could just add one thing, it's almost, I think the way you have to imagine bus rapid transit is something between existing bus, even on priority corridors that may exist today, and LRT in the future. If you look at all the light rail transit corridors that we have in the city, they're all based on these center medians, because this is what really works best. And so this is kind of we're trying to get the same level of reliability as quality as a rail solution, while keeping a bit of the flexibility of the buses to be able to get out of the corridor and serve alternate destinations. So it's really quite different from, I would say, a standard bus, even though you can improve bus by providing priority. It's really in between the two.
Thanks so much, Matthew and David. At this time, I'd like to pass it over to Jocelyn, who will connect us to participants ready to ask live audio questions.
Thank you, Stephen. Firstly, I'd like to welcome everyone and thank those who have joined us in the Zoom room. So that's our opportunity for folks to ask live questions. So we're eager to get to some of those. I know everyone has been patiently waiting, and there's been a lot of engagement in the chat here. So I know folks are quite ready to talk to the panel. So again, just in terms of the process, we are going to be answering questions in the order in which we receive those. So thank you again. We've been kind of keeping track through the chat and the raise hand function. Again, just still calling to folks. If there is interest, you're welcome to continue using that hand up function. And again, I know that there's been a lot of great discussions in the chat. Some of those questions have been submitted to the written question forum on Engage page. So just some assurity there that all of those questions that we weren't able to get to, we'll be posting responses within 14 business days to the Metrolinx Engage page. So please do subscribe to our Durham Regional e-newsletter because we'll be letting folks know when those answers are available to view. But with that, I will go ahead and start getting into some of these questions. So the first participant we had was Abdul. So we're going to pass the floor off to Abdul. Just give us 1 second here.
Hi, is my turn?
Hi. Yes,
Hi.
the floor is yours. Go ahead and ask your question.
Almost all the question I put in the text format. Will that question be taken into consideration and will be intimated later on, or today is only the thing you're taking the question and everything finishing is today?
No, so we'll be able to look through the chat later. We can export that and look at some of those questions as well to answer. But if there's anything you wanted to take the time to go ahead and ask live, I know you said you had a couple of questions, but even if there was one burning one in particular, you wanted to take this opportunity to do so, you're welcome to do so here.
I have one burning question of coloring the road. When there was a diamond, was enough to do the work, and why we're spending so much money to coloring the road? And this is,
I can maybe start with that one. So the red asphalt really is no more expensive than black asphalt. But what red asphalt does is it tells people every single day and every time they drive on the road that that portion of the roadway is dedicated to public transit vehicles. So what we found is that using a diamond, the pavement markings come off, they disappear when it snows. It's harder to see in certain weather conditions, whereas red asphalt is much more visible and much more durable than just putting the diamond markings on. So really, we found that on Highway 7, and we found that in Ottawa and in other Canadian cities as well as US cities, that really is the standard, that by using the red asphalt, it's a constant reminder to drivers that that is a dedicated public transit space. It's also visible all the time. On a regular lane where there's diamonds, you may miss them if there's other traffic that's on the lane. So really, it's a way to tell the public that this is a space for public transit vehicles, not for the general traffic.
What is the cost difference between the two?
The red asphalt is only marginally more expensive than regular asphalt, but we find in terms of its longevity, it's the same as regular black asphalt. So there really is no major cost premium with it. It does save on terms of pavement markings and ongoing maintenance. So over the life of the roadway, the cost difference is negligible.
What about the high occupancy vehicles?
No, this corridor will not be for high occupancy vehicles. It will only be for public transit vehicles. Emergency services vehicles will be able to use it to respond to the community, but other than that, only public transit buses will be allowed to use the lane.
Thank you for that very great question, and thank you panelists for the answer. So we're gonna go to our next participant with a question, who's Rich. So Rich, go ahead, the floor is yours.
You must be on mute. We can't hear you.
Hello.
Yep, it's good now.
Hi, Rich. We can hear you if you want to go ahead with your question.
Hello.
Hi, how are you, Rich?
Cat got your tongue or what?
Hello,
Sorry,
can
what's
you hear me?
your question? We can hear you.
Okay, sorry for that. My name is not Rich. My name is Sachin. Hello.
Is that better
Okay.
now?
Sorry.
You hear
Go
me?
ahead, and then we'll catch up with Rich in a minute or two.
Okay. Can I start?
Hi, Rich. We can hear you. If
You
you want to go
you
ahead
can
with
hear
your
me now?
question.
Sorry.
Hello.
Oh, there.
My main question, I have a lot of questions. Sorry?
Cat got your tongue or what?
Go ahead,
Sorry.
Rich. That's fine. Go ahead,
You
Rich.
can hear me? Sorry.
Hello.
Sorry,
Can
what's
you
your
hear me?
question? We can hear you.
Okay.
Sorry for that. My name is not Rich. My name is Sachin. Hello.
Okay, Sachin, if you could just hold on. Rich will go first, and then we'll get to you next, okay? So, Rich, please go ahead.
Okay. My main question is
Can I start?
the stretch
Rich, we
from,
can hear you. If you want to go
you
ahead
can
with
hear
your
me now?
question.
Sorry.
Hello.
We can hear you, yeah.
But I have a lot of questions. Sorry?
Go ahead, Rich. We're getting a bit of feedback, Rich, but if you keep talking, we can hear you.
Sorry, there's just maybe my internet connection is bad.
Sorry for that. My name is not Rich. My name is Sachin.
Okay, Sachin, if you could just hold on. Rich will go first, and then we'll get to you next, okay? So, Rich, please go ahead.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, go ahead, Rich.
The stretch from.
We can hear you. Yeah.
Sorry, it's the delay in my audio. The stretch from basically Conlins Road all the way to the end of
Getting a bit of
Ellesmere.
feedback, Rich, but if you keep talking, we can hear you.
Sorry, there's just my internet connection. This is frustrating. Sorry. My main question is the stretch from Ellesmere, along Ellesmere, from Conlins to Highway 2 is 100%, is 95% residential. All these plans look like they're through mixed use areas. This is strictly residential. This plan is going to destroy like this is essentially a residential street. I've been there for 46 years. And I remember when it was the narrow lane. I know times have changed, but this plan seems like it is not suited for this section. From Ellesmere, along Ellesmere, from Conlins. Can you explain why?
So, Rich, thanks for your question. I think you're asking about, this being a residential neighborhood. Why are we going through here, and how is this different? Well, there are, in fact, other sections of this corridor which are residential on both sides of the street. So we have a stretch at the east end of Pickering Village from Church Street out to Rotherglen. There's portions in Whitby that are also residential on both sides of the street. We also have existing conditions along other systems like this in Ontario. For instance, along the Queensway, where the Queen streetcar runs, there's a stretch that is residential on one side of the road. So really, this isn't really any different. What we're trying to do is the reason this corridor is selected. It is the most direct route. It is the most convenient route. It is the route that has a high ridership along the corridor. It has the high potential for more ridership and growth. So when we look at it, on balance, providing transit along this corridor really is the preferred corridor. We do recognize that there will be a change in the way you access driveways in this area, but we don't feel that is necessarily as much of a negative as people perceive it to be. In the short term, yes, it'll take a week or two to get used to it, but we found in other communities where this has been introduced that it really just becomes second nature after a week or two. So yes, we do recognize that there are different kinds of communities along the corridor, but what we're trying to do is balance off all the needs, and we believe this project is striking the best balance to use the public road corridor to move as many people as possible, to encourage a compact urban form, to encourage more public transit use, and in our opinion, this is a good use of public space. So we can talk a little bit more about what some of the issues are, but that really is where we're headed. I don't know, Matthew, whether you wanted to add anything to that.
Just maybe to add that we hear your point, Rich, and we've looked carefully at alternatives on how can we best serve the people who really want to go who either come from Scarborough and want to go through Durham, or want to move within Scarborough to reach, to go to the hospital, to go to the university, or go to Scarborough Center, and alternative routes. So I know on the Engage website there were some alternatives that were highlighted in some of the questions, whether it's going along Shepherd or things like that. They don't serve the same purpose. So going along Shepherd is a great idea too. There's an LRT that's planned there in the regional transportation plan, but it serves a different purpose. Here we have riders who are either trying to go to work in one of the employment areas along the way, along Ellesmere or in Scarborough Center, or students, or people who are visiting family and friends. It's, I think, in the study that we did at the start of this project, it was about a third of each. So in terms of people traveling along, traveling and moving along the corridor, today it's about 1/3 for work, 1/3 for students, and 1/3 for other reasons. And this is really the corridor. We're trying to connect specifically kind of these residential areas with employment areas, with kind of key amenities and institutions inside the neighborhood. So there's really, and the alternatives we looked at going through Kingston and then up Military Trail, they don't work. They have more disruption. The time on the bus is slower, and they have much more significant impact on the housing that's nearby. So really, Ellesmere, even though it is a residential street, is a great option for that. And and this will, I think we do have the opportunity also to improve all the sidewalks and the cycling routes. So that will give also a very direct cycling route to Scarborough Center, and that will provide also more options for all of the residents that live along Ellesmere. And it's not, so it's, as David said, it's not a unique case in Toronto or in Canada. It's quite normal that along a long bus corridor like this, you're going through some residential areas, and a lot of people a lot of different people can really benefit from the different services that we're bringing with this piece of infrastructure.
Thank you very much. We're going to go on to the next question, but before we do, sorry, I think we're getting a little bit of feedback still. And just a reminder to everybody, if you're in the live room, if you're watching in the Zoom room, if you have a separate window of the presentation up, if you could just mute it or keep it closed, that would be super wonderful and helpful to us. So we're going to go ahead and go into the next question, but I did want to add one note ahead of that. If you have just joined us, we're in the live portion of the event, so you're still welcome to visit the Metrolinx Engage page and join us here in the Zoom or live room if you wanted to have an opportunity to ask your question live. So with that, the next person up is Ranbo, so you can go ahead and ask your question. The floor is yours. Ranbo, are you still with us? Give you 1 second, see if you can unmute yourself, and you can go ahead and ask your question. Okay, well, hello?
Why don't we move on to the next one then?
Yeah, absolutely. I was just going to say that. Yeah, we're going ahead. We're gonna go on to the next question. Ranbo, if you do have a question and you were just unable to unmute yourself, please do drop it in the chat, and we'll get you in next. So the next question is from Sarah. Sarah, you can go ahead. The floor is yours. Okay, so no, Sarah, well, the next on the list that we have Doug. And again, Sarah, if you are with us and you're just having some technical difficulties getting off mute, please do drop us a note in the chat and we'll come back to you. So Doug, go ahead, the floor is yours. We've lost a couple folks, I think. So let's look at the list here. We have.
I'm sorry, can you say the last names if the last name is on the Zoom? Because my name is Sarah and I don't know if there's more Sarahs than myself, and I didn't put a particular question. I have a bunch of comments.
Sure. So Sarah, that's a great comment. I'm sure we can certainly do that going forward. If you had your hand up or you had a comment even that you did want to share with the panel, you're welcome to go ahead now. If not, we can always address any kind of comments or questions on Metrolinx Engage, or you can always reach out to us via email too. So do let us know.
I have a comment just about the heritage and the environment of the community. Many of us are extremely concerned about like we've mentioned, the loss of the old growth trees, and especially the impact that it'll have on our community. Highland Creek is a very unique place. It is almost like a small town within Scarborough. It really has that feel to it. And we're really concerned about the impact of this project on the heritage, on like the aspect of community in Highland Creek. Another comment that I have is that the ridership of the buses in this area is actually very low. I commute every single day in this area. There is barely any traffic. When I get home, I'm relieved because I come to Highland Creek and there's zero traffic. And the bus ridership is extremere low in this area. And you know, it's also very concerning because we live on a side street close to Ellesmere, and we are very concerned about people deciding to use our street as a alternative roadway to avoiding the changes that are made on Ellesmere. And we're already seeing an increase in speeding. We're already seeing an increase in use. And so we're very, very concerned about the safety of these side streets that people will ultimately start using to avoid the changes on Ellesmere. So I don't know if you guys have been to the community at all, but there are a number of signs opposing this project in our community. And we really hope that you take some of this into consideration in the things that we're saying, especially in this area of Highland Creek, because we really do value the heritage and the environment of this community. And we're very concerned about this project. Thank you.
Maybe I can start. So there's quite a few things to that I can start to talk about, and then David, you can jump in. First on the ridership, today we do, even though the buses may seem may not always seem full. Well, first we're in the pandemic, so right now it's not the right time to look at bus loads. But even before the pandemic, the buses were moving about 1,000 people per hour along Ellesmere. So it's true they move people more efficiently than cars, so you probably see them less, but that's a lot of people, and it's equivalent to the number of people who are moved in cars, because we had the same kind of level of traffic in the P direction of about 1,000 vehicles per hour, and a lot of them are with a single person in the vehicle. So I think in terms of, and this is, you know, what we're trying to do with this project is to prepare the future, the growth around Scarborough, in Durham, but also, you know, the growth in Scarborough Town Centre, the growth of the university. All this is going to increase traffic, and you've mentioned it because you're already seeing some of the traffic increases, some people going along other more residential roads. So this is exactly why this is really why we're trying to push for that solution, to give people more options to move around and to move more people, because we're able on a single bus lane to move more people than on a regular traffic lane. So we're trying to prepare for that growth and make sure that it is harmonious with what is, with the neighborhood that it's going through. And with respect to the heritage question and the old growth trees, that's a critically important concern for us. Today we do, we want to make sure that we're upgrading the sidewalks and creating the cycle lanes where they are. But that's why throughout the Highland Creek area, initially, I think a year ago when we came with some design proposals, we were going to widen to give a bit more comfort from a traffic perspective. And then we heard that from the community, and we said, and we went through, and the team with David went through the traffic numbers again, and we said, well, we can manage the traffic on up to 2041 with a single general traffic lane, and we can keep the road narrow and keep broad landscape zones along the boulevard so that we can keep that character and keep most of the trees. So today we know there are a few pinch points. Generally, they're closer to intersections where because we need some turn lanes. That landscaping zone gets a little bit narrower, but in general, and that's the part that in detailed design. So today we're looking at it at the scale of the corridor, but when you're looking at a tree, you're really looking at the precision of 1 meter. So depending on where you're sliding the sidewalk or where you're putting the bike lane, it's a very detailed analysis depending on where the trees are, and that's something that we're really critically aware of, and that we'll pay attention to in the detailed design to make sure that we'll adjust where the sidewalks and where the cycle lanes are to minimize that impact on trees and make sure that we're keeping that really good, friendly, green landscape quality to the neighborhood. David, I don't know if you had any comments, anything else to add?
Yes, I mean, one of the requirements of the EA is to do a cultural heritage review. So we have looked at all of the properties and documented all those that meet the provincial criteria for heritage buildings. So that will also be available as part of the study. We are generally maintaining the general traffic capacity along the roadway. So we do not see or predict that there's going to be a lot of traffic that moves off Ellesmere and tries to use other routes through the neighborhood. We do recognize with the center median that some traffic will reroute slightly, but what we are generally finding is that in this neighborhood, it is fairly self-contained, and it will be people within the neighborhood who are choosing a slightly different route to work their way through the neighborhood. So it really is you and your neighbors using the same streets that you always use slightly differently. So we will, and we have done in other situations, it takes a short while when this opens for people to get used to that. But after that, we have plans working with the city to see whether there's a need for any additional traffic calming, or if there is some particular route that a lot of people are choosing, and if there's things we can do to offset that. Generally, though, with these projects, once it's up and running and people get used to it, we find very little neighborhood infiltration, but we are committed to looking and making sure that if unforeseen problems do come up, we work together to find solutions for them.
I would like to say something, if you don't mind. I'm not on your list, but I just want you guys to know, I don't know if you're familiar, they got 4 elementary level schools in this area, very close to Ellesmere. You got a public library, and you also have a park across there, and a lot of activity with kids crisscrossing those streets. So that is something you guys should take into more consideration, because a lot of kids, that's why it's such a community. It got so many, like the elementary schools, from up to grade they go, and a lot of kids walk to school now. You know what I mean? And that is something y'all should pay attention to before you start thinking about your corridor and how much buses you're going to run through here. Think about it. Kid get run over through this kind of stuff you guys are doing could be a bad thing. We've had accidents in this area. Fatal accidents.
That's a good point, and we do agree, and we are taking safety quite seriously. We are looking at upgrading the sidewalks so that there are safe ways to walk on both sides of the street. There will be dedicated crosswalks at each traffic light, so that there will be dedicated ways to cross the street. Similarly, accessing the buses at those stops, there's a dedicated way to get to and from the bus islands so that there's a safe way and a fully accessible way to get from the curbs and the sidewalks to the bus facilities and across the street. Generally, what we're going to see, particularly in the stretch east of Conlins, where we're going to have one general traffic lane in each direction, we'll actually see a reduction in traffic speed. We'll see all the cars following one right behind the other, generally in a single lane. What we tend to see in those kinds of conditions is that actually becomes a safer road. We also see that where you don't have cars that are making random left-hand turns in and out of driveways or at other side streets, you reduce the complexity at all of those driveways and the number of movements that people need to be aware of when they're crossing or cycling or walking along the road. So what we found in York Region is we've seen a significant reduction in the number of accidents, and we've seen a significant increase in the number of pedestrians because it is a safer place to be. So we believe that this program not only introduces higher order public transit to give people more choice, it actually creates safer streets, which rolls forward to create safer communities. We are aware of where all the schools are, and yes, we agree that that's a very important consideration, but it has been looked at.
And just maybe to add one word, we know, listening to the community and looking at it too and understanding it, the Highland Creek Community Park, we know it's an important place too, and that's a specific area that we're looking into also to see if we can add a traffic light there to facilitate crossings of Ellesmere at that specific area, so that kids or parents or whatever can go and access it very easily. So that's definitely something we have in mind, and that a detailed design where we really look at each little section of the corridor very carefully. That's definitely something that we have in mind, and we're looking at carefully to make sure that people also can use the park as they wish, safely and without any afterthoughts about the buses.
You ever consider, by the time you guys are finished, you make the place more complicated and more dangerous with all these little things you're going to be doing just to suit yourself?
Maybe if we can move to the I don't know who's the next person on the list in the Zoom room, if you have anyone else, Jocelyn.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you, Mathieu. Again, just out of respect of everyone's time, we know that we're.
Hello.
No, we lost you, Jocelyn.
The next person on the list to ask a question was Vincent. So I'm going to take Vincent off of mute, and you can go ahead and ask your question.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, you're coming through.
Vincent, you're unmuted, Vincent. I just don't know. Did you just want to check your audio connection on your side?
Yes. Can you hear me? Is that better? Okay, great.
That's great.
So I actually do have, you did answer one of my questions that I submitted by writing about engaging with transit riders, and it sounds good. I do have an operational question though, because this BRT, I mean, originally, I guess the main point is to have the Durham Transit travel from Oshawa through to Scarborough, but the TTC will be able to use the lanes in Scarborough as well. What are we doing about fares and fare integration between DRT and TTC? Because in East Scarborough, a weird thing in terms of distance, it would actually be closer for me to go to Pickering Town Centre, but I never will do it because it costs me an extra fare on Durham Transit. I would actually take the bus to Scarborough Town Centre. That's just an example, not always going to the mall, but fare integration would go a long way to making this well, it's already a useful project, but a more useful project. So what's going on with that?
Yeah, thank you. That's a great question, and that's quite a thorny issue. But that is being dealt with at another table. It's a constant issue, not only for Durham, but also for York Region and for Mississauga and Brampton, and between Brampton and Oakville and Mississauga and Oakville and Burlington. So there's a lot of discussions going on to try and find solutions for that. we anticipate, and our modeling is based on the fact that by the time this is operational, we will have solved those issues, and you'll be able to use any bus along this corridor, and it'll be a single fare along the corridor. So that is our hope, and that's an objective that the team is and the other teams are working on achieving.
So yeah, just to add to that, so from I would say we're looking at it as an aspiration, but we're also very practically right now working with the Ministry of Transportation and our municipal partners to explore some possibilities to integrate these fare systems. We know it's a tricky issue. We know there are some revenue impacts for the operators, but we know that there are more and more, and this project is one example, but we have quite a few in across the region where we're getting more and more people who are crossing municipal boundaries to get from where they live to where they work or where they study, and this is really pressing. So we are actively engaging right now with transit agencies, municipalities, and the ministry to refine that approach and to get, and to start kind of implementing it in a stepwise fashion and to get to gradually go towards this aspiration to a completely integrated fare system in the future.
That's fantastic. Like, I think the fare barrier between the regions is a big thing for people. So especially, the folks who live, let's say a few blocks south, or I should say a few blocks north of Steeles in York Region, will actually walk down to Steeles to get to the TTC rather than paying the two fares, because the distance is so close. So the fare integration, I think, would really, really boost ridership a lot. So it's something we have to tackle. And I know it's a Metrolinx priority, so I'll shut up now.
I grew up 400 meters into Mississauga off the Etobicoke border, so I have lived that for my entire life and career. So yes, we're working towards that. So yeah, it's an issue in the way that the system was structured originally, and when at the time that this idea was created of the different boundaries. There wasn't one continuous city from Oshawa to Niagara Falls, so we now need to think slightly differently, and we are working on achieving that.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Vincent, for the question and the panel for the answer. So next up, we have Kevin. So Kevin, if you'd like to go ahead and ask the panel your questions, we're going to go ahead and unmute you, and the floor.
Sure. Are you able to hear me? Yeah.
Yes.
Hi, my name's Kevin Rubising. I'm a resident of Scarborough. I'm a young professional. I've got a background in engineering, and I'm very supportive of this project. I think it's great. I understand there's some details and constructive feedback that I hope people can give, but I think the idea that things have been quiet and the same for a very long time. I understand that, and it is a beautiful neighborhood. But Toronto is also the fastest growing city on this continent, right? Like, we are the fourth largest city. There is a lot of change that is coming, even though things may have been kind of quiet in Scarborough for the last however many decades. And with that change, like all of the development that's coming and all of the many more people are coming to school, and there's a lot of job opportunities. There's a lot of reasons people are moving to this region. And I think this is one of the rare opportunities where we're actually planning infrastructure for the future. I think it's really frustrating when many of us, you always complain about government not building infrastructure before they let people move in and it got too busy. I think this is actually a really exciting way to get ahead of it and put the infrastructure that's needed for my generation, right? For people who are struggling to, they can't afford to live in Toronto maybe, and that's why they are leaving to other cities like in Durham region and nearby. And to have reliable transit options means that, we don't have to get into our cars and drive and eventually clog up the roads, because there's just simply not enough room for everyone to drive. So I think this is a really, really important project. I do appreciate the sensitivity around trying to prioritize greenery and active transportation. I think that's really important too for the project to be successful. I think what I'm wondering is, there were some suggestions in the chat about doing things like the bus lanes on Kingston, and I'm wondering if there's something that we could do sort of as an interim or an incremental step, so that there's some transit priority that comes to the area first, so people have a chance to maybe experience it and see what it's like before sort of moving on to this type of project. Are there any opportunities for an interim solution or a pilot, something that can be done quickly to make things better?
So great, thank you. Those are great comments. Yes, so this project, we obviously can't build 36 kilometers of BRT overnight. So the opportunities, we're going to be building it in sections, but the service is already operating. Durham already operates the Pulse 900 in as far as the university. TTC operates service all the way out to Port Union, Shepherd. So there will be the opportunity for more and more service as portions of the corridor come online. We are looking in downtown Whitby. We have a solution to fit through a historic area with this very narrow, where we might be running a pilot as to how we can get through that area. So there may be opportunities here as well to do what's being done right now, actually on Morningside, where the future Eglinton East LRT that's being planned in order to preserve that space and capacity, they've painted the curb lanes red for bus priority to give the buses more priority to help build ridership before the LRT gets built. So we may do something very similar through here, where we could paint the lanes or put in temporary stops or look at other options. So yes, there definitely are interim steps that we are starting to look at. The EA, of course, has to approve the ultimate plan. And then when we get into detailed design, we can look at some of these opportunities to improve things incrementally to demonstrate the benefits. But I think the fact that there already is an express bus along Ellesmere, and the Pulse service is in itself a semi-express service, which has seen double-digit ridership increases every year because of its speed and reliability. I think we're already seeing some of those things happen. But yes, we'll look for more opportunities to demonstrate it as we go.
Just maybe one thing to add to that is it's definitely going to be built in phases, and we'll stage it to get to the areas of congestion where the buses would really benefit the most. I think we also want to be careful that we don't want to stage it in a way where people are going to save a lot of time on one part of the corridor and then get stuck for 10 minutes on one part that we haven't managed. So we also want to be a little bit careful about making sure that we want to address some of the pinch points now, because we know that these are also really critical for the riders. So it's always a fine balance between gradually kind of growing that service, and regardless, I think already with the City of Toronto, TTC, and DRT, they've been growing service as the demand rises. So we'll continue also to develop the right service for to match the demand as this demand grows in the future. So we're not going to get to 2-minute frequency, in 3 years' time. That will grow also as that demand grows, and so we will, both from an infrastructure standpoint and a service standpoint, kind of develop that gradually, but still being a little bit careful to make sure that we're achieving kind of the level of quality. We don't want to do it halfway either, so we want to reach kind of the level of quality that we want for the service, so that people can rely on it and can really make a choice on where they live or where they work based on the reliability and their expectation as a transit rider and customer.
Thank you. So we are getting close to 8 o'clock, but there's a lot of really good, thoughtful questions and comments coming in. So I think we want to go ahead and continue the conversation a bit longer and allow for a few more questions. I know folks have been waiting patiently. So next up, we have Jay Patel. So Jay, if you want to go ahead and ask the question.
Yeah, my name is Jay, and I'm working at 2100 Ellesmere Road. Every day when I'm making a left turn to come back my house, Ellesmere to Markham Road left turn is taking 5 to 6 minutes. So do you have any future plan for that? For the left turn, Markham, Ellesmere Road to Markham left.
So I know that there are a number of intersections along the corridor where we see very high traffic use today. So we are looking in our modeling to look at using this service to encourage more people to take public transit and see fewer people driving or choosing to drive by giving people more choice. Sorry?
There is a two-way. How about the traffic? Because there are so many people are just keep walking and walking pedestrian, and we didn't get chance for left turn.
Yeah, so I think we will be working with the City of Toronto to look at whether dedicated left turn phases or if there's other ways to improve capacity. We do recognize that there are some major challenges along the corridor, that the Markham-Ellesmere intersection in particular is very heavily used in the peak hours. We are hoping that when we put in the BRT service, more people will choose transit and that will take pressure off the roadway. Unfortunately, that is one of the reasons that we need a service like this, is that there just isn't the opportunity for everybody to drive to do everything. So we need to find ways to encourage more public transit usage. We do need to balance that. And so we are, particularly in the West End, making sure we preserve the existing traffic capacity. So we're not taking away traffic lanes. We're maintaining the same number of lanes while adding public transit on top. But during the detailed design, we will look at ways to try and resequence the traffic lights there to try and smooth out the flow. I know the city is also looking at more of an adaptive traffic signaling system that will know that if a particular move is busier at a certain time, it will give a little more time for that to happen. So these changes are all going to sort of happen incrementally as we implement this project.
Thank you, Matthew. Thank you, David. And thank you, Jay, for the question. So next up, we have Caroline. Caroline, if you wanted to go ahead and ask your question.
Hi, good evening, everyone.
Hi.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, so I'm calling from a business in Scarborough on Ellesmere Road. We've had several meetings with Metrolinx already, and I don't want to repeat the same things over and over again. One of my major questions was, looks like most of this the construction of this the system that you guys are planning, it's based on making it the cheapest or the easiest way. And there are several people that are opposing to this project. However, you guys are still going on and not thinking of maybe changing the route for this, or maybe taking it somewhere else, like Long Shepherd, or maybe somewhere north of Scarborough, where again they have lack of transportation compared to what we have on Ellesmere Road. And that was one of my thoughts. But at the same time, we are very concerned that with this project, we are going to be highly affected with our business, as we have several 5-ton trucks coming in and out of our building, and they will be affected. Our business will be affected. And we have several petitions that we have gathered from our customers, suppliers, vendors, everybody, that they are opposing to this. And this kind of study doesn't do real justice to what how we can be heard, because we need in-person meeting. That's what's going to help to hear everybody. It's this online is not really helping us, because most of the conversation is being done by you guys, and less people are being able to ask questions. So that was just my thought, but we have had several meetings with you guys already. So what other update can you give us that's going to help us to be a little bit more at ease that our businesses are not being affected by this major project?
So maybe I can start on a couple of...
Kristen, because I know Kristen went on the... I don't know, Kristen, if you're still there, because I know you've met with a number of businesses just west of Markham Road. And because as you mentioned in asking the question, we have been, the team has been, keen, while respecting all the public health recommendations, but to go and meet out with the businesses and the residents and the associations that have asked us to do so. So we've been there. So I don't know, Kristen, if you want to speak to a little bit of what you've seen there, or David, you can. I know folks from your team. I know Margaret was there too, and they had the conversations with a number of business owners to find that right solution for them.
Yeah, so we have had a number of meetings. One of the things, Carolyn, that you mentioned was, why not on Shepherd instead of Ellesmere? Our answer is it needs to be Shepherd and Ellesmere and Eglinton and Midland and Markham Road and Morningside. What we need is more transit to match where we have the overuse of the roads. So it isn't a matter of this project or here or somewhere else. It's really in the long-term 2041 plan, it's both. So there's a plan for higher order transit on Shepherd as well as on Ellesmere as well as on Eglinton. So we're trying to do all of those things because we know that people don't just necessarily move along one single street. They need to move on a whole network. And the more of a network there is, the more people are able to choose public transit for some or all of their trips. We do recognize that your business, you do have truck access in there. So I think when we get into detailed design, we need to look at how we make sure that the driveway and the roadway is configured so that trucks continue to be able to get in. We do know that introducing the median down the center is going to mean that large trucks are going to have to approach businesses differently than they do today. We've seen this in other parts of the city, like on Yonge Street in North York. There was the same concern when the median went in there, but all of those businesses are still doing well. The trucks simply changed their routing patterns. So we know that the courier trucks do it today. They know where all of these restrictions are. They plan their itineraries to be able to approach businesses in a way that works. We've been talking with Aldgate as well, just east of you, and looking at maybe there's an additional traffic signal that needs to go in. We're looking at how we can use some of the other streets to reroute some of the heavy truck traffic, not all of the traffic, but some of the truck traffic. So I think there's more conversations to be had, but I think in terms of consultation, what we're actually finding is that in this online, when we post this, yes, it is still not quite as interactive as being in person, but we actually engage more people because they can come and watch this at 11 o'clock at night or 3 in the afternoon, or they can watch it in pieces. Whereas if we have a public meeting, everyone has to be, at the same community hall at 6:30 on a Thursday night. So we're finding that the online consultation is actually more engaging. Do feel free to keep writing in. We do have your petitions. We do recognize that there are businesses that are not necessarily as compatible with public transit as others. So we need to find the balance here, as we do on all of these corridors, to make sure that we work with everybody. Now, Matthew or Liana?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'll just chime in just to agree with everything that you said, but also that we want to get back out there to meet with people in person as well. And we will do that as soon as that's safe for everybody. As you say, the online engagement has changed things a little, and I don't see us ever moving away from that completely because it makes it more accessible for people. But yes, we'll be back. We'll be back out there to meet with people in person as soon as we can.
Thank you, everyone. So we do have 3 more questions or hands up. So I think we're going to go ahead and we'll take the next 3 questions. So I think it's Takis. I apologize. Please correct me if I mispronounce that. Maya and then Souza. So those are our next 3. So I'll go ahead and we'll start with Takis. Again, please, apologies. Correct me if I've mispronounced. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. My name is Takis Plagianakos. I have been involved in planning projects, mainly in energy projects, but also other long-term investment projects, which are based on long-term forecasts, similar to this project. And in most cases, the forecasts were wrong. And whenever decisions were made to make the investment, in many cases, when the project was completed, was not needed. So I have 2 questions related to this project. First, do you plan to update your studies and reevaluate this project, given that most of the information used is quite old, it's 4 years ago, and of course, before COVID? will you plan to update your studies before you make any final decision for this project? That's the first question. The second question is, to avoid the risk of making major investment without significant benefits, will you consider and make it more explicit that you will adopt, let's say, red asphalt lanes with high priority for these buses, basically, in order to see how this scheme will perform. And in this way, with minimal costs, you can achieve perhaps many of the objectives. And I'm talking specifically for the Highland Creek area. In answer to the previous question, you said that you will consider it, but I don't see it as an explicit phase-in stage in your proposal, because with minimal effort, you could get very close to the benefits of this project without making major investments. Thank you.
Yeah, I can take the first one if you want, David, and maybe you can take the second question. Thank you, Takis, for that. You're right. It is a challenge. Well, especially now in the pandemic, when we see that a bit of our thinking of how the city is working, how people work, and how people use transit has changed so radically in the last year and a half. And so we need to rethink that. And I think that's what we're doing right now. So earlier, Kristen mentioned in the next steps that we're developing what we call a preliminary design business case, which is that updated version of the business case that we had done in 2018. So we are going to update all of these the model to be able, both with some fresher data and some much more detailed understanding of what the project will be and what the benefits will look like. So that update will come in the spring of next year as we with that updated business case. In it, I know with the planning team here at Metrolinx, we've been carefully looking at the potential long-term impacts of the pandemic on the way people work. We've had already a couple of surveys go out to a wide range of companies, and then we've been surveying also other folks have come out with some surveys, the Board of Trade, et cetera, to look at, what are the trends in terms of teleworking? What does that change in the future? Same thing with universities, and we know. Well, I mentioned earlier, students are about 30% of the ridership, so we know it's a big. They're key customers who really need transit. Universities are also changing the way that they teach, and these are some elements that we're looking at carefully to see what the tendencies may be, and how what are the impacts of some changes there in that type of in these types of behaviors on the future of the project. Today, what we can see from the early elements of analysis of at least changing work patterns is that the people who are most likely to telework it's more of the downtown Toronto area, the financial sector, insurance, things like that. So these are the ones that have switched mostly to teleworking, and today who are anticipating that telework will be more widespread. A lot of the businesses along Ellesmere need people to be there in person, and so we do think that the economy around Scarborough is based on more kind of service and service sectors and some manufacturing, logistics, things like that, which can't be performed through telework. So the need, I would say, will probably be higher in an area like Scarborough, opposed if we compare that to, I would say, the financial downtown of Toronto. So these are some elements that we have, and we've quantified them through a number of surveys, and that we'll put into the updated business case to make sure that we're well prepared and we understand what are the risks for the future, so that we right size the project to future demand, knowing that we're still tracking towards a 20-year horizon. David, yeah, maybe on what's the BRT light like?
Yeah, sure. And just to add a little bit on to what you're saying, Matthew, we also tend to over exaggerate current conditions or current trends. If we look back a little bit further at SARS, we look at the financial crash of 2008, we look at 9/11. After 9/11, when everyone predicted no one's going to want to go downtown and work in high-rise buildings. That lasted for about a year and a half, then they all filled up again. After the financial crash, we're never going to work the same way again. We've been working the same way. So we look at longer term trends, and what we see is what we're predicting currently for 2041 may not happen until 2043 or 2044, but we believe the trend, given the population and employment growth in the east end of the Greater Toronto Area, we will hit the numbers pretty much on time. In terms of interim staging, as I mentioned, the environmental assessment process is designed to look at the ultimate infrastructure. So we're to look at what is the ultimate condition, what does that need to look like. Once we get that approved and we get into detailed design, then we can look at how do we do some staging. There is an example, though, already in this corridor out in Pickering and Ajax, where Durham Region, partially in creating and introducing the Pulse service, looked at adding BRT lanes on the outside of the roadway. They had to do it in smaller segments. So as a result, they stayed on the curbside, but by having having segments of transit priority, moving to a service that has stops about every 700 meters, they saw a 50% ridership increase within the first 2 years. They continue to see more growth in ridership on that corridor than any other corridor in their network. And in fact, now they're carrying more than 3,000 passengers or 3 million passengers a year on Route 900, which is, by far the largest route in their system. We've seen the same thing in York Region. We introduced what was called Quick Start, where we put in a limited stop service that matched where we were going to put all the stops for Viva. We saw a significant ridership jump just with Quick Start, and then when we started implementing the BRT lanes on Highway 7, we saw ridership go up again. And in York Region, the fastest growing routes are the routes of the Viva system. Brampton has seen the same thing with the Zoom system. We've seen the same thing in Ottawa with the transitways. We've seen the same thing in Calgary with the LRT and pre-LRT routes by mimic them with BRT. So we know this is a system that works. Once we get the EA approved, we will then get into detailed design and look at how we implement these interim solutions. The challenge of mimicking it exactly is that median lanes are not as easy to just go out and stripe. Because we have to be able to get people to the stops in the middle of the road. So it's challenging to get an exact duplicate of what we're doing, but we will look at a more limited stop service, looking at beefing up the current 900 series express routes that run on Ellesmere as a way to test this. The TTC has also seen where they've introduced express routes, which mimic or sort of mimic a BRT service, that they've also seen ridership increases. So there are a number of mechanisms that we'll look at, and they will be rolled out in the next stage once we get through the EA.
I'm sorry, my question was much simpler. Why you don't adopt the red asphalt lane similar to what is in Morningside or Kingston Road?
That may be one of the things that we do. Once we get the EA approved as an interim stage, yes, we may just paint the lane red, because ultimately the red asphalt lane will be in the middle of the road. So we don't want to repave the curb lane red when what we really want is for the median lane to be red. So we will look at ways to mimic the BRT system. It may be painted lanes, it may be skip limited stop service. It may be other ways to demonstrate how a faster and more reliable service will actually improve ridership. So there's a number of ways that we can do that.
Sorry, I would reframe the question. Can the red lane replace of what you are proposing? Keep everything.
Thank you, Takis, for the question.
So no.
I just want to be mindful of everybody's time here. I know we said we had 2 more questions to get to, and everyone's been really patiently waiting. So we are happy to answer this kind of last question, a follow-up question. But after this, I'd like to get to Maya and give Maya an opportunity to speak and have the floor. So go ahead, sorry, panel, if we could answer this last question, and then we can get to Maya and give her an opportunity.
Just maybe in a few short words. So the painting things red is good as a short-term action, but it can't it doesn't deliver all the benefits of the center median that we're talking about tonight. So it wouldn't be able to deal with the projected ridership that we see growing over the next 10 years, or so. It's good for a very short-term solution, but today we don't. It doesn't deliver. I think from a traffic perspective, it doesn't perform as well because I talked about the friction with vehicles and right turns and things like that. So it doesn't perform as well as the center median. So ultimately it cannot. That red lane solution, it's a really good short-term solution when you don't have the ability to change, or you don't want to invest, or there's no significant change around. But it will not be able to support kind of the growth of the region, the growth of the universities, of the employment areas, as we see coming in the next decade or so.
Thank you very much, Mathieu. And thank you again for all the great questions and comments. Again, you're welcome to reach out to the community engagement team via Engage, the comment form, or the dsbrt@metrolinx.com email anytime with any supplementary or kind of follow-up questions to this conversation, and we'd be happy to answer them. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to get to Maya. Maya, go ahead. The floor is yours.
Hi there. I've lived in the Highland Creek community for over 30 years, and in the interim, I've seen it grow and change. So I can understand that it's going to continue to grow and change, and that's great. We are also a family with one car, so all of us are transit users. So I'm all pro-transit. My question is, the Highland Creek community basically extends from Shepherd all the way down to Kingston Road. I've heard your presentation on why Ellesmere Road is the reason you're choosing to put this transit through. But I don't understand why Metrolinx is hellbent on splitting a community into a North and South Highland Creek. The only reason I can, from what you presented, was that it saves about 2 or 3 minutes of transit time if you put it on Ellesmere rather than on Kingston Road. In my view, you're basically sacrificing the community to save 2 or 3 minutes of time. I would imagine it's more due to cost. To route the system would probably cost more. And I'd like to know if that is the main reason why this transit is being put through to Ellesmere. That's one question. The second question is, the businesses around the Highland Creek community, most of them are centered in the Kingston, along Kingston Road. I don't see any benefit to the residents of the community if this transit system is not going to be put through on Kingston Road. The Ellesmere route is going to be a thoroughfare for people coming in and out of the community, but so far I haven't seen from your presentation what benefit it would provide to the people living in Highland Creek. If you could answer those 2 questions, please.
I'm happy to start, and then David, you can add on to that. So, no, thank you for your questions. We understand, we understand where you're coming from, and the quality of the neighborhood, and is something that we're very attentive to. So, again, I mean, David said earlier, I think it's not Ellesmere or Shepherd, for example. And I saw on Metrolinx Engage, there are a lot of questions relative to Shepherd. We really need, because of the growth, and we're all, I think the prosperity that we're benefiting from in Toronto is also connected to that growth. And so we need both. We need the transit that goes on Shepherd and Ellesmere and on Morningside, and to build, to also to face the big climate challenge that we see ahead of us. We have to be able to develop a broader transit system for everyone that's really connecting all of the different parts of the community together. And so it's really not one of the other. We have studied the alternative along Kingston. The arguments for putting it on Ellesmere rather than Kingston Road is not cost. It's not an issue related to cost. It's really about serving more effectively. So I think there overall the travel time savings on average that we see is more like 10 minutes for the average rider. And then there's an additional reliability factor where that we see more around 3, 4, 5 minutes. So these are kind of the benefits that we're going to get, in addition to crowding and then reduced greenhouse gas emissions from and as well as some safety benefits along the road. So there are many benefits, and this is what we're looking at when we make that type of decision. So the decision on when we consider the different alternatives, cost was really not what made us choose Ellesmere over Kingston Road. It's really just getting to best serve the different communities and the different destinations along the way as directly as possible, because whether you're driving in your car or taking a bus, you don't want to take a lot of detours on your way to the destination. So it's serving them most effectively and most directly, while finding a way in the project to really manage kind of the character of the different types of neighborhoods that it goes through. So along Ellesmere, it goes through a wide range of neighborhoods. It goes through some natural areas. It goes across some ravines, some residential areas with businesses, and at every segment that Kristen presented earlier on, we kind of adjust the design to be able to fit that character, the needs, and the functions of each of the parts of the neighborhood. But to go back to your first question, the cost was not the determining factor in that decision. It's really bringing the right service for where people want to go today, and where they want to come and want to go tomorrow, knowing that a lot of the different parts of the region are growing.
We also need to look at, yes, it's a 2 to 3 minute savings, but you also have to remember that's 2 to 3 minute savings for the thousands of riders every day who are going to be on here. We already know that every public transit trip in this corridor is 2 to 3 times longer than driving. So every couple of minutes that we can save encourages more people to choose public transit for more of their trips. So that was the driving factor. It had nothing to do with cost. It had to do with the most efficient way to move people along this corridor. If we said it was an average of 2 minutes, this service is going to carry 65,000 people a day. So 65,000 people a day who each save 2 minutes is 130,000 minutes of savings of time. So these multiply up very, very quickly. Now that's every single day times 365 days a year. So really the capital cost was not really part of it. We also find that public transit tends to be in the center of communities, not on the outside of communities. If you look along Yonge Street, what's happened where the subway has gone in? We've seen development focused around the stations. What's happening on Highway 7 is we've seen much more development focusing around the Viva stations. What we're going to see on this BRT corridor is we're going to see the neighborhood turn towards this, and it really is not dividing the community. The segment between Conlins and Meadowvale is 4 lanes today. It will be 4 lanes in the future. The roadway is the same width, so it's no further to cross the street than it is today. In the east end, between Meadowvale and Kingston Road, yes, it's 2 lanes today, but those lanes are actually very wide. It's actually 3.5 lanes of pavement. So we really only need to widen the road about 5 feet before we get the 4th lane in there and make it work. So what we're going to see is those transit stops become the focus and the center of the community. They don't divide the community. That's the experience we've had everywhere else that we build transit.
Thank you so much. So we do have one more question, and I know Sousa's been very patiently waiting to ask. So go ahead, Sousa, the floor is yours.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for taking my questions and for being here. I really appreciate having this opportunity today. And one of the reasons why I live right on Ellesmere, so I think I have the right to be frustrated. Every time I hear about it, my heart is beating very, very fast, because I don't understand why we are gung-ho about doing it here, because it's a residential area. It seems to me that we are being pushed to go somewhere else because you want to make this, you want to make the transit. I can see the transit, I see the pulse, like the buses are empty most of the time. If they are jam-packed, I understand. If you take TTC, you'll understand what jam-packed means. Sometimes people breathing down your neck and stuff like that. Every time, doesn't matter the time of the day, you look at the bus, they are empty. So now I do not get it why. Okay, I understand 20 years from now it's gonna change, but I like to have the peace until 20 years from now. How about that? So we are paying taxes. I mean, every year we are paying property taxes and everything. At least we could afford to have the peace of mind. I understand the gentleman earlier, who's the engineer, who said this is Toronto, it's supposed to be like that. No, a residential area, that's why we choose it. People choose to be somewhere where you have peace of mind. And right now, I do not see it. I do not see the safety net. Like when I do not see it. And plus, one thing that bothers me, I do take the TTC, I do take the transit. When somebody is coming, I have my sister who works all the way to Ellesmere. She doesn't take the highway, she drives. So now you're telling me she cannot come, like coming west on Ellesmere, she cannot turn left to our house. She's gonna have to go somewhere around and come back. What if somebody have an emergency? What if there is a fire? The fire truck needs to get to us. Isn't that dangerous? For me, this is dangerous. Like our community have people who are old, they are like middle-aged people, retired people and stuff like that. We see ambulance frequently sometime on the road. So you're telling me if I live on that side of the road, the ambulance, the fire department, they cannot reach to me because like if somebody is in danger, health danger, any seconds count. So now for them to go around and by the time I may be dead, I don't know if I'm making sense, but I do not understand this project. I don't think I will ever understand it because Shepherd is there, it's wide enough. We've seen Shepherd, it's wide enough, it can take it. It can take the traffic. Why do we have to disturb something that is working? Just because I don't understand the reason. That's my
So thank you for your comments. There's a couple of things in there I'd like to address. One of them is the emergency services. So we have actually had meetings with the fire department, with the police department, with the ambulance, paramedic, and they actually like the idea of the dedicated lanes because when at rush hour it is busy, they will be able to use the bus lanes to move faster through the community. So it may take them 10 seconds longer when they get to your house to slow down to cross the center median, which will be crossable by emergency services vehicles, not by general cars, but a fire truck or an ambulance will be able to turn left into your driveway. They may take 10 seconds longer there, but they may have saved 1 or 2 minutes coming out from Markham Road because they're not in the middle of all of the congestion on the general traffic lanes. So the emergency services have told us it will have no impact on response times, and in fact, it may actually improve response time. The other thing, if you notice when you're riding the 95 and you get on at Scarborough Centre, the bus is jammed. Why is that? Because that's right at the subway or at the SRT. And as you go further and further along Ellesmere, there's fewer and fewer people on the bus because the bus ends just a couple of blocks from you right at before you get to Kingston Road. Similarly, on the Pulse service today, it's full in Ajax and Pickering and Whitby, and really the section at the very end getting to the university is the very end of the west end of their route, much like you're the very east end of the 95. When the Pulse service goes all the way to Scarborough Town Centre and they can carry people to all of those destinations west of the university and connect to Scarborough Centre and the subway, we're going to see much more ridership on that route. Similarly, extending the 95 out towards Shepherd Avenue and down to Port Union, that's going to increase more ridership going east on the TTC route as well. So part of the reason we see buses in your neighborhood that aren't fully used is because you're sort of right at the sweet spot of the west end of the Pulse route and the east end of the TTC route. When those routes are extended and create more of a network, we're going to see almost an overnight increase in the number of riders. We have heard from people in Durham that they would they would be much more likely to ride all the way across if this Pulse service actually went to Scarborough Centre. So we see there's going to be a ridership increase. We also see that we know there's going to be a big increase in population and employment growth along this corridor, and providing a service that provides more opportunity, not only for buses, but also by providing cycling facilities and sidewalks, more active transportation facilities, will take pressure off the road so that we see less growth and congestion as we see more growth in people. What we're looking at is how do we use the public space that we have in our road right-of-ways to move more people, not more vehicles, but more people. And so this solution is part of moving more people more efficiently. The number of people we're predicting to use this BRT service, even before we get to 2041, this one lane of BRT traffic will move more people per hour than a general traffic lane will. So we can move more people with less infrastructure. As I mentioned, we also we're looking to find the most direct and most efficient route to save people time. And so if today you had a friend visiting, or a child of a friend visiting, who was thinking of going to the campus at University of Toronto, but they also had a job at Pickering Town Centre with a company that they live in Barrie, and the chain has a store there, they could have a job there. If you were going to pick them up from the campus and take them out to Pickering Centre, would you drive up Morningside and go out Shepherd to go out to Pickering Village? Or would you go straight across Ellesmere and Kingston Road? Chances are you would go the fastest and the most direct route. And that's what we're trying to do in this corridor, is create the most efficient route to move as many people as possible.
Thank you, David. And thank you, everyone, for all of the thoughtful questions and comments. We're so happy that you joined us in the Zoom or live room. It was great talking to you. And with that, I'm going to pass it off to Stephen for final remarks. Thank you again.
Thanks, Jocelyn. And thank you to everyone who took the time to join us for tonight's event. And thank you to our panelists. We received a lot of great questions, comments, and feedback on the Durham-Scarborough BRT project, and we appreciate the interest and continued input. This evening's live presentation, as well as answers to questions that weren't able to be addressed, will be posted on Metrolinx Engage. We would encourage you to subscribe to our Toronto East or Durham Regional e-newsletter to be kept apprised on future Metrolinx engagement opportunities for this project, such as Public Information Centre number 4 that will be taking place in fall 2021. The dedicated community engagement team can be reached via email at dsbrt@metrolinx.com or by submitting a comment form on Metrolinx Engage. We look forward to seeing you in the community when and where it is safe to do so. Thank you once again for joining us this evening. Stay safe and have a good night.